Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something very simple. So I recently saw this video by TechYesCity where he takes the so-called NVSlimmer, which is supposed to make your NVIDIA driver install have less headroom on your PC. So we're gonna go ahead and today we're gonna test if there is any performance improvement by using NVSlimmer. Now, I personally do not care for the telemetry, but for me, the NVIDIA app has been useful when I want to override DLSS in newer games. And I also use NVIDIA Broadcast to do all this background replacement thing and also for, helping my microphone with the noise canceling stuff. So I do have a bunch of NVIDIA services running on my PC right now. So, the games we're going to test. I'm going to test the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark because that one is very intensive on the CPU. We're going to run it at 720p low settings. Then I'm going to try Resident Evil 4. We're going to go to the Chapter 4, which is the most CPU intensive part of that game. It's extremely hard to get over 120 FPS in that part of the game. So I'm going to go to that worst performing part of the game, and we're going to check if we get any FPS gains at all, right? And then we're gonna run the new Metal Gear Solid Delta because that one is extremely hard to run on the GPU. So it actually hammers the GPU quite a bit more than the CPU. So I want to see if there's any differences at all when you're working with something where you're GPU limited. So for Delta, if I just set it to 4K DLAA on a 4090 undervolted, it is hard to reach 60 FPS, man. I'm usually in like the 45-50 range. So if I get any extra performance at all, I'm gonna notice right away. And the final game I'm going to test is an FPS. So I'm going to try with Doom: The Dark Ages. And we're going to be running it at 1080p, assuming that you want to get maximal FPS out of Doom: Dark Ages. And I'm going to be running it at high settings, like something where you want eye candy, but you also want high FPS, So it's gonna be 1080p high settings. So that's the setup. Let's go ahead and check. Alrighty, so for those of you who watched my Noctua video, you already know more or less the specs of the system. If you didn't, I'm just gonna mention it here quickly. So I'm running a 3900K with E-cores disabled, 5.1 gigahertz on the core, and I'm running 5 gigahertz on the ring clock. Then for the GPU, I'm running an RTX 4090 with a custom Underbolt. Then finally for the memory here, so the memory we're running is DDR4 4000 CL15 with about 50 nanoseconds of latency in AIDA 64. So let's go ahead and try the games and see what's what. So we're going to now run Monster Hunter Wilds, the benchmark. So we're at 720p and lowest settings, and you can see our 1% lows as 193, our average 200. But this is of course just the menu. So I'm gonna come back and show you what happens to the numbers once we enter around the middle-ish of the benchmark. So wait a bit and I'll come back. So we're about the midpoint of the benchmark here, running through the dunes. And as you can see, we're about 89-90% GPU utilization. Our 1% lows are about 124, 125, 120. Our averages are 150 or something. So this is more or less the performance in the stock version of the driver. I have not applied NVSlimmer yet. And we're gonna just wait for the score to come out and we're gonna switch to another game. Alright, so this is the final score with the stock driver, so 43,573. And let us remember that for when we try NVSlimmer. Go to the next game now. Alright guys, so welcome back. So this is Doom: The Dark Ages, and we are running it, like I said, at a resolution of 1920 by 1080, DLAA, and then of course no ray tracing, but everything set to high with the highest quality textures. So let's take a look here. So you can see that we're about 126, 125 on the lows, 144 on the averages. So she's running pretty good, man. This is pretty good, and this is my preferred way to play Dark Ages, honestly, because I like the low latency you get from just having a high frame rate. So she's running pretty fine. So this is usually how I play the game. This is how I like to play it, and this is also one of the advantages of having a 4K display, right? Because now the modern 4K displays, for example, I'm using a G70A here by Samsung. So the modern 4K displays will actually do integer scaling on 1080p content. So this actually looks really sharp. This is really, really nice to play, man. Pretty good. So this is more or less this area, and for me this feels pretty good, but I know for some people maybe this is not so great, but for me this is pretty good. So we are still about 148 on the lows, 162 on the averages. So we're gonna go ahead. Of course, the performance goes down when you're in combat or whatever, right? So we're gonna go ahead and check another game now, and we will come back when we have the NVSlimmer part done, and we will come back and do this area again. So let's try another game now. So this is Resident Evil 4, and we are running at the settings that I usually play at. So let me show you what that is. So we go to display, so not display, graphics. So we're at 4K, of course variable frame rate, no VSync. So I use the interlaced rendering mode, and I don't use FSR2 because it's broken in this game. I have already explained it back in another video in the past, so you can just go watch one of my previous videos on Resident Evil 4 to understand why. So you can see the rest of the settings. So everything is set to high, but I try to stick to the most performance settings and the things that make the game look prettier, right? I don't like the fluff. And I also do not use ray tracing. I don't think it's worth it in this game. These are the settings I normally play in. So this is 4K, right? And you can see we have a 1% low of about 125-ish here, 150 on the 1% lows. And let me take you to the hardest part to run in this game. So the hardest part of the game to run, it is right over here. So the reason this part is very hard to run is because at this point of the game, it is connecting 3 or 4 very large maps. So you can go back from the very beginning of the game to the last area in the village. So it's connecting 4 or 5 maps, sort of semi-open world. And this is the worst case scenario for the RE engine. RE engine doesn't like open world. So this section, specifically this spot, is the hardest to run. So check this out. So we're about 87% on the 4090. So we are still not fully saturating the 4090. We're about 120 FPS with 110 in the 1% lows. This spot is the absolute hardest to run in Resident Evil 4, this one. And nobody has ever covered how badly this spot will dip frames if your CPU is not up to the task. So another thing you can do here is you just stay on this spot and then you use the scope. So look at that. So this will stress your system the most. So we're down to 90 FPS, 80 on the 1% low, 67% utilization, only just using the scope in this section. This is the hardest place to run in the game, man. So if you're curious about your performance, you can just go ahead and try to check this place out. It's pretty heavy, man. And if you already watched my previous videos, you will know that if you use FSR here, the scope is completely bugged. It's totally unusable, full of glitches, but if you're on interlaced, it looks perfectly fine. It's smooth, it's perfect. Do not play with FSR. Never use FSR in this game. It's garbage, all right? Moving on, let's go try NGS Delta now. So this is NGS Delta, and this is one of the hardest games to run right now. So this is quite punishing on my 4090. So graphics. So we are at 4K. We are using DLSS at native, so DLA-A. Ultra settings. The only thing I modified was the bloom and the motion blur. I set to high because it's fine. I don't need that much bloom. And the depth of field is still enabled, and I'm using no filters, of course. So this game is pretty heavy to run. So this is my personal save file, and I think it's more interesting than the jungle because you have some other architecture stuff. So here we have, let's see if it can focus here. So we have a 1% low of about 53. It was 44. I saw it, but I think it's due to the menu. And we're about 57 FPS. The 4090 is totally pegged out, right? So the game actually ships out with a rather old version of DLSS. All I did was swap it with the newest one. And let me tell you that it actually does wonders for the look of the game. So we're just gonna move around a little bit. So you can see it drops to the 40s. So we're on 42 FPS. And this is probably one of the most demanding games right now. So of course there's a lot of divided opinions as is this game worth, is the visual fidelity here worth the impact in performance? And to be perfectly honest, I've been playing it for a while and I think so, but it really depends on the person and what your expectations are as to what is good visual fidelity. So as you can see, this is a much more intensive area, and here we have like a jungle area with reflections and everything, and you can see our performance really tanked here. So we're at about 40 FPS and 36 on the 1% lows, and the 4090 is just pegged, man. It's just pegged at 100%. So this is 4K DLA-A. I'm sure with a 5090 probably you can get better performance here. Wow, there's still some, what is that, some stuff in the distance. LOD, like, yeah, there's still some LOD there. What is that? Can you guys see it? There's some LOD stuff going on there. Like, yeah, you guys can see it, right? It's not just me. There's some stuff appearing and disappearing over there. That's weird. I thought Unreal Engine 5 was supposed to get rid of LOD, but anyway, here's the good thing about Delta. We can complain all day about the game, but the good thing about Delta is that the performance is really consistent. Fine, it's capped at 60 FPS, but there is no stuttering. The controls are still responsive, you know, like it doesn't make it super laggy. Fine, I mean, you get some lag because it's not 60 FPS, but the performance is really consistent, man, and there's no stuttering. I think we need to give at least Konami some praise because they didn't make a complete stutter fest. The game, even at 30 FPS, is still fully playable, and it looks gorgeous, right? So anyway, enough about, I can talk about Delta in a different video. So that's our results here. Now let's go try NVSlimmer. How about it? All right, guys, so to get this done, we're just gonna go ahead and follow Brian's instructions over at Tech Yes City. So in order to get NVSlimmer working, we're just gonna go ahead and download a fresh copy of the newest NVIDIA driver. We're going to go into safe mode and remove it with DDU. And then we're going to install the new NVIDIA driver using NVSlimmer. So we're gonna have to go reboot into safe mode, use DDU, remove the old driver, boot into normal Windows, then use NVSlimmer to install the newest driver, and we're gonna see if we can get any differences at all. So if you're interested in seeing his results, please go to his channel, look at his video. It is very informative, and I am very curious to see if we're gonna get any performance improvements here. So let's go ahead and try to do this procedure now. Let's go. So we're back in safe mode, and this is the latest version of DDU. Just to make sure that I follow all the instructions correctly, we're gonna go ahead remove all the drivers, restart, and then try to use NVSlimmer to install the newest NVIDIA drivers. So all you have to do is select OK. If it's your first time running DDU, you just select OK. Then you choose your vendor, GPU, NVIDIA, clean and restart, and we are gonna go ahead and do that now. So after it finishes cleaning up the driver, we're gonna restart in the regular Windows, and I'm going to try to show you the procedure of using NVSlimmer. So let's go ahead and wait until the system restarts. We are back here, and all we have is NVSlimmer running. So we just finished cleaning up the driver. So we have NVSlimmer here, and in the file folder where I put NVSlimmer, all I have are the latest NVIDIA drivers. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select them. It says it's gonna save a folder, and I'm like, find. Just click, it's gonna load the driver package. One or more unrecognized folders were detected. So we are going to install the core, the display driver, PhysX, of course. Let's see, vacant, telemetry, I don't want the telemetry. So I'm going to install the control panel. So I think the control panel is probably the only thing I'm going to keep. Of course, as the HD audio, maybe I do need this because I need the sound to come off from HDMI into my speaker right here. I assume my speaker is right here. So I assume HD audio is exactly the speaker. And that's all I'm going to install, man. I don't need everything else, I think. Virtual audio driver. I really hope it's just gonna work. So I'm gonna select apply. This will delete any modules that... Do you want to continue? I can select yes. Install driver, yes. And then I see, so once you do that, all it does is clean the driver package, I guess. And then you just click accept and continue, express install, and it's gonna do its thing. So we're gonna wait until the driver installs, and let's see if my sound works. So we're back, and the installation went fine. Everything is there, and I should have basically just the audio driver, the control panel, PhysX, and that's it, man. So let me check if I really have the control panel. It's right here. Agree and continue. So I still have my control panel here. You can see the driver 4090. So this is working fine, man. So I can still change my settings, and I can still enable G-Sync and everything. So now that this is set up, I'm gonna go ahead, restart the PC, and we're gonna test the games. So let's go and do that. Just quickly before I restart, there is a few settings that I do like to use in the control panel other than G-Sync. And the first one is I like to put the shader cache size to unlimited. And then I like to put the low latency mode to ultra. So for me, these are the most important settings when it comes to the NVIDIA control panel. Everything else, I don't touch it, man. So just for a quick sanity check, after using the NVSlimmer, I decided to use the AIDA64 latency and cache benchmark just to see if there was any difference at all in my memory latency. But there was no difference. Like sometimes I get 9, sometimes I get 50, sometimes. So this is basically the same as I was getting even with the regular driver installed. So for me, there is no difference in the AIDA64 latency at all. I'm sorry that I did not punch the benchmark before changing the driver, but I can assure you that it's not that different, man. I usually either get 49 or 50 or somewhere around this value. So there was no difference here at all. So let's go ahead and test the games. So I just started running the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark, and I think I run into a very interesting bug here because I don't think the DDU cleaned completely my shader cache or something, because I did not get a prompt to make the shaders, compile the shaders again, and when it started it was using a lot of CPU. So I'm assuming it is doing something to recompile the shaders or something. I have no idea, but anyway, we're still running at the same settings. just so you can see that I am not playing you, right? So this is lowest and 720p. So we're gonna run the benchmark and see what's what. So all the future games will be running at the same settings, just assuming. I'm not going to show the settings again. I'm gonna be using exactly the same settings, all right? So let's go ahead and see how NVSlimmer does. Let's start the benchmark. So we are running the benchmark, and to be quite frank with you, I do not see that much of a difference, but so we're at about 150 and 124.5 on the 1% lows here. And we are running through the dunes again, and we can wait until this frog does the thing with the water. All right, and this is the final score, 45,445. So there was indeed a gain in the score. So it is about, if I remember correctly, a difference of about 5 FPS or something. So the difference is of course not that high, but it's still a nice improvement to get the extra 5%. All right, guys, so we are back. So this is Doom, the Dark Ages, and we're gonna go ahead and see how the NVSlimmer driver performs here. And it seems pretty much the same as the previous one. But you are going to be the judge, of course, because you will have, in video format, you will be able to see everything all at once, whereas me, I can only experience things as they come, right? Here we are, so this is the spot, and we're gonna aim at here, and let's see, so it says 119, 122, 120, yeah, and then 112 on the 1% lows. 90% GPU utilization, so we're not saturating the graphics card. Yeah, I don't see any difference, man. This seems like a dot to me, like. So let's see the pond here. So we're still 42, 43, 45, 44. Is it better? I can't say. Doesn't seem like it is much better. Let's see, let's try to kill this snake here. Okay. So we have done all this testing, and it appears that NVSlimmer is not doing anything for me. Okay, there seems to be an improvement, but it's sort of margin of error. Now, the thing is, I actually went ahead and restarted the PC with I removed the NVSlimmer driver. I reinstalled the regular driver. I rebooted the PC. I made sure all the shader caches were done and everything. And I tried the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark again, and it was actually repeatable. I got the same result as my original one from before I used NVSlimmer. So there is actually an improvement, but I don't think it's as substantial as it appears in Brian's video. It appears to be really about 4 or 5% at the most for me, which is more or less margin of error. I never saw anything which was more than 5%. And the vast majority of games, there was no improvement at all for me. So if I had to weigh the pros and cons of removing the NVIDIA software, for me it's a very big con because I like the DLSS overrides from the NVIDIA app. I actually do use broadcast a lot, and I'm losing on FPS in my 1% lows for all the extra NVIDIA software. It seems like a pretty good trade to me. Now, the thing is, I am testing on Intel, whereas Brian was testing on AMD. I'm not sure if this has any bearing on the results at all. But he did mention that the improvement seems to be better on Windows 10. Sadly, I'm on Windows 11, so it is quite possible that Windows 11 overhead is so high that there is simply no improvement to get from using NVSlimmer. This is a possibility, but honestly, I think even for my current situation, I think this is already a best case scenario because all of that Copilot Microsoft telemetry does not work in China by design. China just blocks all that stuff. So I do not think that if I go Windows 10 on this PC, I will get that huge of an improvement. It is something I could maybe test in the future, but I'm also quite lazy to just wipe my entire drive and reinstall all the OS simply for getting more FPS. I really do not think I'm gonna get extra FPS by doing that. So that was my test. So for me, it seems NVSlimmer is doing not very much. I'm not sure if installing the HD auto driver was the thing that made the result not very impressive, but doesn't seem to do anything for me. Seems like a dud. So that's it. Those are my results. I hope it helps anybody. If you find it nice, please like my video and consider subscribing, where I like to talk about this stuff, but for really playing games, right? So I really play these games. So as much as I would like to get an improvement, NVSlimmer is doing nothing for me, and removing the NVIDIA software is really a big con to me. If you're buying NVIDIA, you really want to make use of the software, don't you? So that's about it. Thank you so much, guys. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.